My name is Anne. At 26 years old, I got married 6 months ago to John, who is 30 and works as an office worker. The story I'm about to share began when John unilaterally decided to have his younger sister Molly move into our brand new house. This house, worth $45,000, was built for us as newlyweds. Ever since our engagement, John and I have been discussing the layout and choosing the furniture, planning to move in immediately after the wedding. When John's belongings arrived, I was surprised by the sheer volume. I asked him, "John, will this all fit in the house? Don't you think you have too much?" John nonchalantly replied, "Ha! Didn't I mention Molly is moving in with us?" I was taken aback. "Molly is moving in with us? Why? We're newlyweds," I challenged. "What's the big deal? Molly is family to you too, and there's no problem with us living together. She wants to live in the new house," he responded. I protested, upset that there had been no discussion about this. John ignored me and continued unpacking his stuff. Eventually, he started shouting, "If you don't like it, you can leave. I'd already decided to have Molly here, so quit your complaints." Clearly unconvinced, I told him I'd call my brother. Fearing my brother, John quickly changed his tune. "Wait, don't call him. Molly isn't staying here forever. She just needs a place until she finds a job and a house. Can you please understand?" Reluctantly, I agreed. "Can Molly use the guest room, right?" I suggested. John made a dubious face and mumbled, "Ah, yeah," though he didn't seem convinced. I moved Molly's things into the guest room. After a hectic day of unpacking, we had completed more than half of it. We were having a toast to celebrate our move when the doorbell rang. It was already past 9 p.m., so I thought of ignoring it, but John hurriedly went to the front door, unlocked it, and let the visitor in. I was shocked as I was already dressed for bed. From the kitchen, John called out, "Hey Anne, Molly's here." Annoyed, I returned to the living room. "Welcome, Molly. What brings you here so late?" I asked, trying to hide my irritation. Molly retorted, "Can't I come home whenever I want? Now, where's my spacious room? Show me around, big bro." She flung open doors looking for another room on the second floor. "Here it is. This is the room for me, right, big bro?" I had a bad feeling and followed her upstairs. Molly was claiming my workroom as hers. I couldn't help raising my voice. "This is my workroom. It can't be your room." John suggested, "Why not make this Molly's room?" "No way," I insisted. I then suggested the room next to it, intended for John's hobby workroom. He panicked. "Not that room. I've been looking forward to using it. I chose the wallpaper and everything." "No way." The only option left was the future children's room, currently being used as a guest room. Still unsatisfied, Molly snapped, "You're quite insolent, aren't you? Not listening to the head of the household. Quite cheeky for a freeloader who depends on him for meals." I lost all energy to argue back, thinking, who's the real freeloader here? While heading back to the living room, I heard Molly asking, "Hey big bro, do we have anything to eat? I'm hungry." I ignored her and continued my solo celebration of our move. They seemed to be having an argument, but I didn't care until John came over and said, "You're always going against me and drinking all high and mighty." He took the wine bottle and gulped it down, then shouted, "If you can't listen to me, get out. I'm the head of the household. Don't underestimate me." He left with Molly. Despite the late hour, I decided to call my brother and tell him about Molly. He picked up the phone on the first ring, as if he was waiting for it. However, I could tell from his voice that he was angry. "Are you mad, bro? Were you sleeping?" "I'm sorry," I said. It turned out I called him in the middle of an argument with his wife. "What's up? Did the move go smoothly?" he asked, sounding frustrated. I couldn't help but ask, "Don't you have to talk to your wife? Is it okay to leave her like this?" John replied tiredly, "It's over for us." Worried, I suggested visiting him, but he said he'd rather be left alone for now. I began to tell him about Molly, how she had started living with us from the first day of our married life, and how she refused to use the guest room. I'd even mentioned that John and Molly had been calling me bratty and telling me to do as I was told. My brother was concerned, thinking I was being treated like a servant by my husband and Molly, but I laughed off his concerns. "I'm your sister, right? Me, a servant? If they can manage it, let them try," I retorted. He laughed and said, "Good point, but call me if anything happens." We then shifted the topic to the problems between my brother and his wife. What I heard left me flabbergasted. Apparently, his wife had been seeing men from a dating site and was having an affair. He found out because she accidentally sent him a message meant for her lover. John had been suspecting her infidelity for some time, and once he got confirmation, he took her phone away and sent her back to her parents. He was planning to visit her parents' home tomorrow for a discussion. We ended the call, agreeing that both of us were in terrible situations, and decided to catch up over the phone again soon. While tidying up the remaining boxes, I waited for my husband and Molly to come home. They returned late at night, cheerfully drunk. As I continued unpacking, they approached me. "Molly and I have thought of a great idea. Let's make our bedroom Molly's room. We can each sleep in our workrooms. What do you think? Good idea, right? Make sure to clear the room for Molly by tomorrow." I replied, "There's something I want to make clear." I asked them how much Molly would contribute towards groceries and household supplies each month and how long she planned to stay. My husband started to panic. "What? You want to get money from jobless Molly? I'll pay for my salary, so there's no problem, right?" Molly added, "How long will I stay?" "Until I'm satisfied. My mom's cooking is all old-fashioned and I don't like it. Plus, she's annoying at home, always nagging me to do laundry and cleaning. Here, I can do whatever I want without spending a dime. It's the best. If you don't like it, Anne, why don't you move out?" I snapped, "Then let's split the household expenses. I will work to cover my share. Feel free to use your salary for yourself and Molly." For some reason, they seemed pleased with this, even though I added, "You will need to take care of your own chores." It seemed like they weren't really listening, so I made sure to leave a written note about it. The next day, worried about my brother, I decided to visit his workplace. He is the president of a construction company, having taken over after our father passed away from an illness last year. When I arrived at his office, he was surprised to see me. "What's up?" he asked. "I'll listen to what you have to say first." I asked him for a favor. I explained what had happened the night before and asked if he could hire me at his company. He agreed, saying, "Our secretary is quitting due to her husband's relocation, so it's good timing." Then, I heard about his situation. I was so shocked that my heart almost stopped. My brother revealed that his wife was pregnant, but there was no doubt the child was not his. The text messages on her phone, which he had taken, showed conversations, photos, and videos with her lover. The messages indicated that the man was trying to escape responsibility after learning about the pregnancy. When I asked my brother if he was going to divorce his wife, he replied, "It'll be hard for the kids, but divorce is the only option." I suggested that he involve a lawyer and have a proper discussion. Then I went home. In my room, I couldn't stop thinking about the texts and pictures of my sister-in-law's affair that my brother had shown me. The sister-in-law I knew was a loving, family-oriented person, and I loved her for it. However, she had been betraying my brother. I felt as if I had lost a dear friend, and tears welled up in my eyes. Despite all that, Molly kept knocking on my door. "Hey, I'm hungry. Can you make something?" she hollered from the other side of the door. But the shock I felt was too much, and I didn't even have the energy to argue with her, so I left her alone. Then I got a call from my husband, who should have been at work. I didn't answer because I knew what he would want to talk about, and I didn't want to talk to anyone. Shortly after, I received a text message from my brother asking if I could accompany him to see a lawyer the next day. I sent an OK sticker in response. I must have fallen asleep because my husband's shouting woke me up. "You didn't even prepare food for Molly, and you're sleeping. What's that about?" he roared. Silently, I produced a pledge I had written and pointed to it for him to read. After reading it, my husband told Molly, "Let's let her sleep today. She seems to be off. We can scold her once she's feeling better tomorrow." "I'm not sick. I'm just tired of you guys," I mumbled before falling back asleep. The following morning, without waking my husband, I headed to my brother's house. My brother seemed exhausted, his eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. I prepared and served breakfast for his children before taking them to kindergarten. In the car, the children said, "Mommy and Daddy had a fight, and Mommy left the house." Mommy was the bad one. She left us at home and went out. We cried because we were left alone, so Daddy got angry. The children thought maybe it was better not to have their mother around because she easily got angry. I told them, "I see. If you're lonely, call Auntie." "Okay," they responded cheerfully. "Yay, we might get lonely today." I couldn't tell for sure, but I got the impression that they didn't seem sad even though their mother wasn't there. After dropping the children off at kindergarten, I turned my attention back to helping my brother navigate his difficult situation. I headed to the law office with my brother. The lawyer told us that there was ample evidence from the pictures and videos on my sister-in-law's smartphone, LIME messages, and recorded conversations between her and my brother. My brother's main goal was to divorce her and retain parental rights. After he finished explaining his situation, I had a chance to share about my issues with my husband. I got some advice, and then my brother dropped me off at home. He was planning to gather the rest of the family today to inform them about the divorce. "If anything happens, give us a call. We're all going to be there," he said as he left, his words feeling somewhat prophetic. When I entered the living room, the house was a mess. It looked like they had tried to make breakfast. The kitchen area was greasy and dishes were left on the table. I was exasperated by the sight and hesitated to clean up the kitchen and cooking utensils that I also use. Just then, Molly appeared. "Where did you go without even making breakfast?" "John didn't eat anything and went to work. Isn't it unacceptable to abandon household chores as a wife?" she confronted me. I responded, "You know what, I'm not your maid or servant. Weren't you taught to clean up after yourself since you were a child?" Ignoring her repetitive, "But you're the wife," I headed to my room. To my shock, my belongings were gone, and Molly's stuff had invaded my space. I returned to the living room and questioned her. "Did you enter my room? Your stuff is in there. What's going on?" "Oh, I've loved your room since I first saw it. It fits my neat and cute image perfectly, don't you think? I've moved your stuff into the guest room," she replied nonchalantly. Hearing this, I rushed to the guest room. My computer and belongings had been haphazardly thrown in. I felt anger sparking. It was way beyond what I could tolerate. At that moment, I felt a strong desire for revenge. I will never forgive this girl, I decided. I planned to wait for my husband John to come home, show him the terrible state of our house, and then ask him, "Do you still want to live here with Molly?" I prepared for all possible outcomes. John, who seemed to have gotten a call from Molly, came home earlier than usual. I heard his loud footsteps approaching the guest room where I was. Seeing him come straight to the guest room, I was convinced he already knew Molly had taken over my room and he wouldn't be on my side. When he opened the door and stepped in, looking like a madman, Molly was right beside him with a thin smile on her face. "You apparently went against Molly. You're the one at fault here. Not even making breakfast. Aren't you my wife? Isn't it your job to take care of me? Molly is your sister-in-law. You should be taking care of her and putting up with her," he shouted. At that moment, I realized exactly how things were going to be. I felt every shred of love I had for my husband disappear. He hadn't said one word to defend me, no mention of Molly being in the wrong, asking her to leave, having her do household chores, or giving me my room back. I told him, "If you're going to let Molly live here, I'm going to invite my brother over. He's never seen our house before. Maybe I should call him over now." Despite his usual fear of my brother, John acted quite bold in front of his sister Molly. "Are you sure about that? If you let that thug into our house, I'll kick you out," he threatened with a confident look. "Kick me out? Try if you can. I'll call my mother and brother and his wife and have them see the house." I shot back. Thinking I would beg and cry at his threat of kicking me out, he retorted, "Do not dare call your family. If you don't like it, then leave." Molly chimed in, "This is my castle with John, you know. You have no right to call anyone here. Even if your family comes, we'll just kick them out." In response, I picked up my phone and said, "I'll call my brother then. Maybe we should live together without you and your family. We can invite our friends over and party without worrying about anything." As Molly said this, she and John seemed excited about the prospect of me leaving, with John adding, "That sounds fun. Maybe we should just get divorced already." Increasingly irritated, I decided to call my family over right then and there, while John and Molly were still high-spirited. They were overjoyed, thinking about the freedom they'd have without me and filled with thoughts of kicking me out. "All right, but you'll regret this. I'm calling my family now," I said. I called my brother and told my family to come as soon as they could. My brother responded, "We've been waiting for this. We're on our way." I figured he must have sensed that I would call him, and I was moved by his foresight. My family arrived within about 30 minutes. Molly, who had threatened to kick out my family when they first arrived, turned pale upon seeing my brother. "Oh, Molly," he said sternly. "I thought you were going to kick out my family when they arrived," I said to Molly, who could only shake her head in response. Seeing her fear, John also shrunk back, no longer as bold without his ally's support. My brother had been practicing judo since he was a kid. Until he injured his knee in college, he had been a regular at national competitions. Standing over 6 feet tall with a buzz cut, he was an intimidating figure. He now coached at a local boys' club. My younger brother, also a judo practitioner, looked just like him. Molly seemed to have forgotten meeting them at the wedding ceremony, despite their memorable appearances. "Who's getting kicked out?" My elder brother laughed. "Isn't it you guys who are leaving?" Gathering her courage, Molly retorted, "Yeah, my brother is divorcing his useless wife. Now, please leave." "What? You guys are the ones leaving, aren't you? This is Anne's house, built with her share of her father's inheritance in Anne's name," my younger brother retorted. My mother, tidying up in the kitchen, remarked, "Oh dear, what a mess." She then called out, "Don't drag out the conversation. Get to the point already." The brothers obediently replied, "Okay," and turned to me, instructing, "There's another person coming. Let them in when they arrive," while gesturing for John and Molly to sit down. "We have 2 matters to discuss today. The first is that we need you to leave," my elder brother told my husband and Molly. When Molly asked, "Brother, is it true that this is Anne's house?" John hesitated. "Well, I was talking to the contractors about the interior and stuff, so I thought it was my house. But maybe it's not. But I'm the head of the household, right?" He had assumed it was his house simply because he considered himself the head of the household without thinking about where the money came from. "You know that being the head of the household and being the owner of the house are 2 different things, right?" my brother responded. John fell silent, but Molly retorted, "I won't leave. Do you know about residency rights? I have the right, so I won't leave. If you don't want us here, you leave," glaring at me. "You seem to have researched this thoroughly, but this isn't a rental property. You're not paying Anne any rent, are you? So residency rights don't apply here," my brother explained. John, trying to resist, said, "But I'm married to Anne, right? I can't leave. I won't separate." Just then, the doorbell rang. The guest my brothers had mentioned had probably arrived. When I opened the front door, my sister-in-law, my older brother's wife, stood there crying. I let her into the house. I asked my brother, "Your wife is here with your kid. What should we do with them?" My mother suggested taking the child to a room upstairs. After showing her to the room, I let my sister-in-law into the house. John was shocked when he saw her. "How did you find out where we live?" "I'll explain everything properly, so please go home for today," he said, acting suspiciously. At this point, my elder brother intervened. "Did you forget my wife's face? This is the second matter we need to discuss." Upon hearing this, the color drained from John's face. "You mean she is?" John stammered, realizing she was my brother's wife. He tried to make a run for it, but seemed paralyzed. "My wife is pregnant with your child. Did you guys do something to get pregnant?" My brother threw down copies of evidence of the affair on the table. "What's your next move?" "For me, it's divorce. Nothing less." Molly, scared of getting caught up in this mess, said, "I'll pack my things and go back to my parents' house," and tried to escape upstairs. But my younger brother promptly told her, "We've got a truck loaded with boxes. Start packing your things right now." He walked out to get the boxes. Molly asked, "Am I leaving today?" But when she saw my brother glaring at her, she seemed to give in. "My wife and John can sort this out first. Sign the divorce papers," my elder brother instructed, handing the papers and a pen to his wife. Seeing that custody was assigned to him instead of her, she hesitated. He said, "That's what the kids want. Your opinion doesn't matter." She signed the divorce papers, tears streaming down her face. "Next time, take care of the child in your belly. I won't ask you for child support. In return, don't ever show your face to my kids unless they want to see you. I won't stop them if they want to see you when they grow up." Hearing this, she apologized to my brother on her knees. I noticed the tears welling up in my brother's eyes. I realized how hard it had been for him. Next, it was my turn. "So, Anne, what are you going to do?" my brother asked. "I choose divorce too. I want him out of my house as soon as possible," I replied. My husband dropped to his knees, apologizing profusely. "I don't want a divorce. Please forgive me. Besides, it could be his child, not mine." But my brother cut him off. "I'm good with 2 kids. I've had surgery to make sure I can't have any more." John went speechless. My brother handed me the blank divorce papers. "If you want him out right away with Molly, have him sign these." I told my husband to sign, and he did, maybe giving up or wanting to escape this place with Molly. I then handed my husband 2 pledge documents prepared by my lawyer, one for John and one for Molly. They pledged to pay for the damage they caused to the house, roughly $30,000 in total, and to never enter my house again. John looked at my brother and me as if he wanted to complain, but when my brother glared at him, he reluctantly signed the pledge document. Shoulders slumped, he tried to go upstairs to pack his things, but my brother interrupted. "Oh, I got a marriage license for you guys when I got the divorce papers." He handed his wife the marriage license. She immediately signed it and said, "John, sign it quickly. You've messed up my life, so you have to take responsibility. I'm having this baby. You can't escape." With a crazed look, my husband signed it, crying and saying, "Just do whatever you want." Finally, my brother yelled, "Hey, you won't say anything unless I ask? Don't you have anything to say to me?" My husband finally apologized to my brother, almost scraping his head on the floor. After that, we all hastily packed my husband's and Molly's belongings into boxes, loaded them onto the truck that had arrived, and took them to their parents' house. With that, my brief married life came to an end. I thought I would live alone in this big house, but my mother offered to sell her house and move in with my younger brother. It seems my older brother, too, is going to sell this house and move in with his 3 children. My mother and brother are going to buy this house for me with the money they got from selling their houses, telling me, "Why not build a new house when you get married next time?" But I keep saying I'm good with an apartment. We got a dog that the kids had always wanted. Although we had some bad memories in this house, we are now living a life full of laughter and happiness. My ex-husband reportedly married my ex-sister-in-law half a year later and is living with her at his parents' house. He seems to be working day and night to pay for the damage to the house. Molly treated her new sister-in-law like a maid. The sister-in-law lost her mental balance, and Molly's mother couldn't stand to see her like that and kicked Molly out of the house. Molly asked my ex-husband for help, but he blamed her, saying, "If you hadn't moved in, we'd still be living in that mansion." Molly ended up isolated with no one on her side.